financing, illegal financing, all these things. So, and one of the challenges nowadays that due to lack of banking system, which are not willing to support remittance service. But nevertheless, we hope something will, of course, in the future, things will change. And one of the main argument that this, of course, countries where the source of the remittance, as we said, US, Canada, EU, and so on, are saying that client or customer identification. Yes, the customer in the Western countries, they have IDs, address, all what they need to send the remittance. But on the other end, on the Somali side, they claim that there is no proper identification, which is, of course, partially true. Yes, there is no, up to now, national, of course, nationwide ID in the country, to be honest. There is some discussion this long time, even the previous government was talking about. The current government, when they came into the power, of course, immediately one of the things they said they will do something about it. They started a program, and we were also unofficially consulted by those who are running that program in 2017, 2018. Then those group were trying to, of course, to set up the ID. They also traveled around the world. They visited some African countries, Kenya, Nigeria. They visited India, Malaysia. They visited also Pakistan. All of those countries, they were trying to see which kind of identification that can fit our society. And then later on, they came up with the conclusion that what Pakistanis are using are more suitable to us, because the structure of their society, like a tribal society, also people living in across the different countries, across the border and so on. Anyway, many similarities were there. So they were, of course, suggesting that we could use that system and so on. Nevertheless, in 2000, I think early 2019, the whole team was, I think, changed, and another team took over. And in our view, what was going at high speed, it took it slowly. What do you call it? Slow speed. Then up to now, of course, we heard that the parliament also passed the legislation that requiring the, of course, the country must have ID, but implementation really is, it seems now a little bit slow now. So nevertheless, that's what, of course, how the ID system is going on. Unless we got a really national ID that, of course, including all biometric features, then this argument about identification will not go away. Let us move on now about political participation of the diaspora. As we mentioned before, the diaspora community settled mostly in well-established democratic countries. That means, of course, they have the exposure of the values of the democratic institutions. Therefore, given the chance, that experience can turn into, of course, a better democracy and transparency back home. However, many diaspora members, if they have to exercise their political, of course, right or whatever, they have to travel back home. There is no other way out now. There is no other way now they can participate in this political process. So they have to travel into homeland. Sometimes spend many years locally, then stand for election. And also, yes, even some of them successfully, they are now in the parliamentary position in the parliament. We have many, of course, diaspora communities in the government, even higher position in the government. Yes, there are some diaspora community are there. Also, when it comes to political participation, the diaspora community, they have this challenge. Sometimes they are far away from of course, the country or where the election is going on. So that also constitutes another challenge. And also sometimes, if not all the time, is to participate this political process. They have to give up their work or activities, even leave behind their families, and go in the country and participate the political process. So this will of course will be a huge challenge to many that are not, of course, willing or not able to travel too often. So what we are here in the form of idea, what we are suggesting that there can be another alternative, or which is, how about if we allow diaspora community to participate whatever political and social activities while they are abroad without the need of traveling home? Okay, well then some of the requirements or prerequisites we can say are like citizen registration or establishing dual citizenship rights, then allowing overseas voting, and then reserving also parliamentary seats for diaspora community. If we go further on this one by one, let us take first one, citizen registration. As we said, most of the countries where diaspora communities settled allow dual citizen, except if you, as far as I know, for example, the UAE, where I am here now, they don't allow dual citizenship. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and so on, those countries, they don't allow dual citizenship. But in the Western countries, they do allow most of them. Then in that case, people can exercise their, of course, election rights or any other citizenship rights by using this dual citizenship issue. Therefore, future population registration can include diaspora community also that hold other citizenships. Therefore, once that is settled, then anyone holding citizenship legally can vote and stand for election. Now, how about voting from abroad? If we allow community or diaspora community to vote from abroad or where they are, then that will add to the political value to the political process, and also strengthen our democratic institutions. That also will promote inclusiveness and equality between resident citizens and non-resident citizens. Unlike Somalia, currently 23 African nations grant voting rights to their diaspora. Due to, of course, after recognizing how the diaspora, the importance of diaspora community in terms of economic support and other, of course, political or their experience in democratic institutions and so on and so forth, these African countries grant voting rights to their diaspora. So we are asking, why not Somalia also? We can do similar thing. If we check these countries, anyway, this table, the font may be small, but these are the 23 countries that allow voting rights to their diaspora community. And type of election is that this diaspora community can vote for presidential, referendums, legislative. As in some countries, or some countries are allowing maybe legislative only or presidential and so on. But anyway, these 23 countries allow their diaspora community to participate in political process. How about now parliamentary seats? One step further. Again, the experience gained from this diaspora community, their experience and or exposure to democratic culture that will be a value or addition value to the democratic institutions. So therefore, if we can allocate or if allocated diaspora community some seats in the parliament, that can positively contribute with the establishment of democratic institutions. Now let us see across Africa again, African countries. Here we have 6 African countries that allocated parliamentary seats to their diaspora community. Senegal, for example, almost 10%, which is almost, let me say 9% of the parliamentary seats goes to diaspora community. And Cape Verde, Tunisia, Algeria, and so on. So these are the countries, 6 countries, they allocated, of course, permanent diaspora, permanent parliament seats to their diaspora community. Somalia, yes, 0 diaspora seats, 0%. We hope in the future we also be part of this list and this list in these countries. Now, let us see what challenges are facing these above mentioned points. The first one will be legal framework. Starting with, it has to be worked out or address this legal framework through legislation, or maybe even review the constitution, training, and also awareness. Another challenge could be the interest groups or the ruling elite may not like this idea of election participating someone outside the country, and that may see as may contribute, let me say, uncertainty in their, of course, in the political process. So anyway, that also another challenge that needs to address. The other one, I think this one, the last one is logistic. It just needs diaspora biometric database process and verification and so on and so forth. So with that, I come to the conclusion of this discussion. The main point being, although diaspora community is scattered across the globe, again, we can see they have a strong link and back home, and also they support financially, really, and of course, in many ways. Then engaging the diaspora community directly through overseas voting and so on, then can contribute also long-term political stability, of course, then in turn prosperity of the country. Overseas voting promote inclusiveness and equality between resident citizens and non-resident and the political process. And one further step could be allocating seats for diaspora community in the parliament, and that also can positively contribute to the democratic process. However, those challenges that we mentioned before needs to be addressed, and future population registration can include also diaspora community that hold other citizenship. With that, I conclude my discussion. So if there are any questions and comments, please, that I will end that.
Thank you, Abdisalam. That was very useful to know. It's amazing numbers you shared with us, and also I like the idea that the diaspora should be given a chance to participate in politics back home. Now, with that, I'd like to open the floor for a couple of questions, because I've got right after this Peter Lang, and then perhaps Ahmed can also contribute or talk about supplementing or complementing Abdisalam. But first, if there are any questions, please.
Yeah, I have a question, if I may, Mohammed.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, Abdisalam, thank you for that presentation. I was very interested in the point you made. I wasn't aware, actually, that some of these African countries reserve parliamentary seats to diaspora members, quite substantial numbers in some cases, Senegal 10%, and some others. So I was wondering, do you know how do these diaspora members participate in the day-to-day parliamentary process? Are they online by video link, or how do they practice that?
Okay, what I read from so far is that, for example, take in Mali, sorry, in Senegal, they have a large community in Europe, mainly in French-speaking countries. And they realize that a huge amount of money comes to the country through remittance from this diaspora community. So what they decided that to give permanent seats for this group. That's number one. Second, what they do is in this diaspora community, someone, let us say, if this parliamentary 15 seats will be contested between diaspora community, someone, let us say, will come forward, then of course the community in that area will vote for this seat. And once they got this, of course, elected, then they have to move the country and, of course, sit in the country as a parliamentarian. But voting and all these things will take place abroad in the community at the same time that the local inside the country are voting.
Okay.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, but go ahead.
So do they travel back to their home country to participate, or do they do video link?
Mostly, and so depends on some country, but I think, as far as I understand, this country, of course, each country has different rule here and there, but once they are elected, and of course they have to go back to the country and sit there as one of the parliamentarians. Wow. But before that, anything can happen from abroad. The election and also voting, everything can happen from abroad.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. In fact, the idea was looked my days way back when I was on the other side of I was in the government, I guess. But there were a lot of technical issues. I guess one of them was when you say the diaspora, the Somali diaspora. So say North America, Australia, New Zealand. How do you decide? Do you say is a numbers game from the US? There are more Somalis, so do they get one or two versus Australia and New Zealand? That was one question. The other question is it by geographical location, or again, is it based on the crazy 4.5? There were a lot of intricacies, but the first question is really to get through the law first, to legislate and actually accept the idea itself that the diaspora will be represented. The technicalities up to we can sort it out, or we can, that can be sorted out later on. And that's where the issue is now. In other words, the government, first of all, to agree with the idea that the diaspora should be represented. And it's getting more momentum because, of course, as Absalan said, a lot of money comes from the diaspora. You can go back in history all the way to the Boston Tea Party. No representation without no taxation without representation. If you're paying so much money, you need to be represented and so on. But I'll leave it there. So are there other questions? Okay, well, I'm not seeing any raised hands, so I think, okay, Hamid, yeah, Hamid, go ahead.
Hi, Mohammed, thank you. Absalam, thank you very much. Again, Swinben, thank you very much. And everyone else, thank you, Absalam, the depth analysis of the Somali diaspora contribution to the motherland, politics, remittance, economic, everything. I can see that there's a lot of things that's happening in the country contributed by those who ventured abroad during the Civil War. I've got a question, one simple question, and there is a good reason why I'm asking this. We always see some stats that say $1.6 billion goes to Somalia every year, remittance money. Sometimes that number contradicts by itself from the same source. mainly the World Bank. And I'm sure that you referred it in your presentation that 1.4 billion um, remittance inflows goes to Somalia. My question is, why do you rely to use the World Bank stats when it comes to this remittance inflow, especially when you as a person and as a company, as a technical person can gather more information correctly than the World Bank? The reason I'm saying this is I know that you involve very important industry when it comes to Somalia, and you are one of the pioneers and the first people who came up systems that allow the Somali remittance companies to use for their businesses. And I don't think there is a better place and a better person than you who can give this kind of stats. Basically, you got the raw data. You have everything that it takes when it comes to remittance to Somalia. During my old days in this industry, I remember that close to 60% of the data of the remittance was coming to you and your company. And the remaining, it's something that you guys have access. But I always ask myself, why the World Bank? Where are they getting their information? I'm saying this because I know that these numbers are based, I wouldn't say they spend some effort and they spend some tough work to sort of ask and find from local people, from countries that are the remittances coming from the US, European country, Australia, and the likes. But isn't it better to get these numbers where we can get real, close to the reality data? That's my question. And to elaborate this, the reason I'm saying twofold. I remember when I was working this industry, I noticed there is a very nice network. Each and every company that is working the Somali remittance industry, they have well-established network in Somalia. In my case, I remember I found out that I can use other things than the remittance. For example, from corner to corner, every single city, town, village, there is a presence for each and every remittance company. For me, it was, wow, you can collect a lot of information other than the remittance inflow and outflow. Case in hand, I tried to get the consumer price index of Somalia. And for me, that exercise was much easier than the World Bank and anyone else, because if I have presence every corner of Somalia, including the small villages, for me, I thought this is an exercise where I can say, look, every branch, every office of the remittance company, can you please do this? Get a basket of goods, items that we all agree in Somalia. Sugar, banana. First, we thought maybe we can get up to 10. We expanded up to 10, 15 items. Surprise, surprise. One of those items was the AK Kalashnikov, the bullet. Because if you want to get a real consumer price index, you have to get the top 10 or 15 items that you can collect, check the prices this month, check the next month, the following month. Okay, AK Kalashnikov, if that is part of the consumer price index, the basket of items, so be it, we add it. And we found something close to the price change in Somalia, what you can call a real consumer price index. So I'm gonna challenge you, and it's a question, why do we use the World Bank to tell us how much money coming through remittance when you guys have all the information that can give us a better figure than the World Bank? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ahmed, trying to answer your question. It is true many remittance transactions that goes to Somalia, it will go through to our systems, no doubt about that. But we are missing part of the equation. We don't have everything. That's the point. Especially some big players like let us say the Abshir we don't have the Taj, we don't have, you know the industry very well. We don't have what you call this Tawakkal, we don't have. So some of the big players, we don't have their data. Second, if we announce a figure, of course, people knows that we are involved in this industry, then we don't want to mislead to anyone saying that exactly this is the figure. Or, unless we have the whole thing, the whole figure, we cannot announce this. Second, my last trip to Somalia in October, I met some people from the central bank in Somalia. I know, or everybody, or not everybody, we know that they are collecting this data for many years now. Then I asked them if they can share with us, not as an individual company, but as a figure wise. They decline. They decline. So we are left no other choice but to report whatever. Maybe this data is shared with World Bank. We don't know. Maybe shared with some NGOs. But for us, we could not get that information. And second, we don't have the full information. We have part of it. So do we have 50%, 60%, 70%? We don't know. So in that case, instead of course, presenting something that's not sure, something that we don't know, and people might take it serious and think, okay, this is exactly this like that, because Absalam saying it, we don't want to mislead anyone. So, Hamid, that's why we always to find out official source, official source. If the case is, for example, one particular company here and there, we might think yes, but if we talk the whole of the Somalia, then it's not easy for me just to say this is the figure. On the other hand, Hamid, you also know that remittance, there are a list of companies that, of course, registered or here and there, but there are also many, many other small companies. They are not, of course, and of course, going here and there. So that way, of course, it's not like I'm just picking up or we picking up the World Bank. No, we thought about this thing. So, and if you are in my position, what will you do? Will you say a figure that shows in the World Bank official, of course, website, the policy, and or you come up, you have some part of it, then you say this 70%, 60%, that you are not sure which way to go. So that is the dilemma or the question we are asking ourselves. So when we compare the two, and instead of telling half of the truth and not knowing the other part, we rather go for the official websites of this international, of course, organizations like World Bank and so on. And even we don't know, maybe World Bank, they got directly from the Central Bank of Somalia. We have no idea that. So that's why we are using always either a World Bank or any other source that we can get it. So that's what I want to say, Hamid, about your question.
Just a follow-up.
Yes.
When I'm saying you or the companies that are dealing with the remittance company, what I meant was including the Habshil. By the way, the big ones are called the Habshil and Taj, and that's the names that Absalan is referring for those people who don't know. Yes, I agree that the big ones, they might have their own systems, but my question is it the World Bank that can get more information, or those who are based locally? That's more or less my question. And the reason I'm asking is I know during my time in the business, people tend more to trust the local people than the World Bank or the World Bank operatives. So it's something that you and me and anyone involved with this knows that if we put all the remittance companies they're acted together, we don't want to do privacy violation or the names or that kind of thing, but only the figure is if there are 10 to 15 companies that involve this business, and if we ignore and remove all sort of use unanimously and get only the figures, my kind of subconscious is telling me that it can be much better than the World Bank, because if you're struggling to get, while people on the ground like you and the rest of the companies, what do you think the World Bank, who are one level far away from Somalia? So this is just food for thought, and
Yes.
something
So,
that
yes.
it's better to think so that we can
Yes.
get. I'd rather have
Yes.
70% correctly than 50%.
Thank you very much. But the point I was trying to say one while ago is that, Hamid, I think this data is somehow more or less available now in Somalia. And Central Bank, they know more than what we are saying. They know because they are all the major, any company that's registered in Somalia now, they are obliged to submit this data to the Central Bank, like any other part of the world, countries in the world, they are doing it. So I think the Central Bank is the, of course, the right source to get this information. So inshallah, that's what we, okay.
Good. Then let's use the central bank. I'm not against the World Bank, by the way. All I'm saying is, for correctness, maybe let's use the central bank. Thank you.
And then how we, this is the good question. That's what I'm saying. I met face to face. This is the point I'm saying. So if we can get them, fine. That's the case. So anyway, go ahead, Mohammed, if there is any other comment or question, please. Hello,
If I
Mohammed.
can, Mohammed is not with us.
Okay,
at the
okay,
moment.
Ahmed. Okay, so Ahmed.
By the way, Peter, Salam, Ahmed, good afternoon to all of you. Regarding the data that has been discussed, I think there is now an entity in Somalia called Financial Reporting Center.
Yes, that's correct.
The equivalent of Austrac. There will be the entity that would have access to such numbers Hamid is inquiring about. I think that might be the only way to source that such information. That's my thinking anyway.
Yes.
From where I sit. But yes, the 1.2 to 1.4 billion has been around since 2004, if my memory serves me right. And that source was either from the UNDP or the World Bank. And it hasn't changed since. Another thing, by the way, which hasn't changed, and I'm really amazed by this, is the fact that the Somali shilling, the exchange rate still holds. When you read some magazines like the African Business Magazine, which still says 18,000 shillings to the dollar. Where does that figure come from? And when was the last time that the Somali shillings was printed by the Central Bank of Somalia? Can anyone answer that question?
Ahmed, about the shilling, as far as I know, yes, it's more or less stable for now a couple of years now, especially in the southern part of the country. And this is because people rely mainly on, I think, US dollar rather than any major transaction, any, of course, major issue. Now things are going to US dollar, and more or less US dollar is becoming the de facto currency in the country, especially in the southern part, because mainly people use this digital currency, or what they call EVC and so on, and that's based on US dollar. So that could be one of the reasons. And I think central bank, they are not regulating this exchange rate and all these things. I remember when I visited to Somalia, I think last year, I come across one of these, of course, exchange things, like people who exchange this dollar to local and all this. I asked them, who is regulating this thing? They said between themselves only, in the market. That is like a free market. So when more dollar comes in, then of course the price will go up or down and so on and so forth. So I think the central bank as far as I know, have little role on the, of course, exchange rate of the shilling, and the fact that they will rely more on US dollar, that will, of course, eliminate the need to know on day-to-day basis of how much their shilling rate and so on and so forth. So that's what I can say about that, Ahmed.
Well, thank you. I think I'll stop you both here because we've got Peter Lang who is already behind in terms of his time, and I wanted us to listen to Peter Lang because he will contribute to some of the questions you are raising, because he just finished a report with the World Bank, and it might be interesting to hear his perspective about data and lack of data and all the issues that you're discussing. So let's hear from the horse's mouth, so to speak, and then we'll continue our discussion after Peter Lang. And please stay, because 4 o'clock also we're getting people. Sorry, Steve Lidl, who will join us from New Zealand. So we have more time after that. Why? Because that's when the Somali audience will join us because of the time difference. So without further ado, I want to invite Peter Lang. And please, Peter, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Mohammed. So I also have some slides to share.
Okay. Can you? If Absam, if you can remove, I suppose yours, or
yeah,
stop sharing